Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is Saturday, and that means it's time for the weekly wrap-up. So if you're over here on YouTube, if you want daily videos covering all the topics about prepping, what's going on in economics, politics, social stuff, come on over to Patreon. It's $2 a month, and that gets you every day of the week. But every Saturday of the week, we do the weekly wrap-up where I bring together everything that has happened, and I say, are we getting closer to shit hitting the fan? Are we getting further away? I have my opinions, you have your opinions, but let's get down to what we've got to talk about. Right off the bat, I want to talk about the migrant caravan. That's right, the caravan that came up from Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala. And somehow they made it over 1,000 miles in relatively few days, considering they were supposed to be walking. But even if they got a ride half the way, they still made terrific time. They made it up to the border, and they were stumped by America, by ICE, which is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, by the U.S. Border Patrol, right? By the U.S. military. They're all down there. In fact, Trump stepped up the military, shall we say, presence on the border. Now, they've tried getting past. There have been a few altercations. There's been tear gas used. So far, no deadly force that I'm aware of. And we're trying to keep illegal immigrants out of the country. I had one person send me an email saying, well, in New Mexico, people were allowed to just come on through. They were allowed in by the government. I don't have any secondary confirmation of this, and it seems a bit odd, but right, it is definitely an odd situation. And maybe those people that came through had green cards. I don't know. But as far as I know, on every other case, they're being stopped. Now, what is happening is phase 2 of the migrant caravan that is now on its way up. So it looks like those that went home have not dissuaded others from coming up. Or could it be that George Soros, the deep state, the Democrats, and other scumbag socialists and terrorists around the world are pleased with what's going on because of the political ramifications and the potential infiltration of our nation at a time when we are weak domestically. We are weak socially, because we're divided between snowflakes and patriots. We're weak because we're divided politically between those who love liberty and those who want communism and socialism. And we are weak economically because our country was divided and divvied up years and decades ago and sent business elsewhere, and now we're suffering. We borrowed money as a nation, we borrowed money as individual citizens, and corporations have borrowed money in the billions and trillions of dollars. All three groups in the trillions. In order to fund, to borrow from the future to pay for today. And our country's divided, and now we've got more migrants coming. You know, Trump needs to get the wall built just to stop these people so that they can be run through a human sieve to find out where the junk is and discard it and allow in the decent folks, if there's a need for them to even be here. So, is that good? More migrants coming? No, it is not. Especially since the wall is not built, it's not completed, it has holes in it, and it's going to be exploited. Now, another thing that's happened this week, well, Pelosi, Nancy plastic surgery face Pelosi, she is now in charge of the House in Congress. You got the House of Representatives, you got the Senate, she's in the House. It's considered the lower house. In England and their parliamentary system, it's called the House of Commons. And that's what we've got. We've got the House being run by Democrats. And on day one, a California Democrat and a Democrat from somewhere else in the country, I think it was Texas no less, decided that they would introduce articles of impeachment. They're not wasting any time on these shenanigans. right? I don't have time to play all these games, but they do, because that's all they've got. So Pelosi's in charge. Articles of impeachment are already on the way. Now, another thing that's been going on lately, and it's been simmering in the background, the government talked about it. There's some groups that have talked about it. It has to do with the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse potential, which would bring down or potentially bring down, either long-term or short-term, because who knows, our power grid. That is getting a lot of continuous play, but it's very low-key. Now, until it happens, right, we can't say that it happened. But what the government did say is that you need 6 months worth of food. Is that extreme? You know, is having 6 months of food around extreme? Because I say have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine. A means of self-defense. Have a plan. Be prepared. Don't be surprised. Right? Understand that, yeah, we're not going to be happy about things, but don't get taken off guard. Right? So 6 months of food, will that help you not be taken off guard? Well, if you need 5 months and you've only got 4, yeah, you're going to be taken off guard. The government's recommending 6 months, which is quite interesting. Maybe we should heed their advice. Maybe we should have double what they recommend. I recommend a year minimum. Anyways, but that's just my recommendation. Who the fuck am I? Anyways, getting back to other events that have occurred this week. In just a few short weeks, Chairman Powell, who's the chairman of the Federal Reserve Central Bank Authority, which is also a private bank, has decided, right, that he's going to go from being hawkish. I hate these terms, hawkish and dovish. But going from being very strong behind the economy, saying it's very strong, we're going to raise rates. And they raise the prime rates, the interest rates. That is the rates that you and I pay to borrow money. They're raising the rates. And that didn't go over well. It went over kind of like a turd in a punch bowl. So in response to that, this the new Powell that came out a couple weeks ago, he was a little more waffly in the middle. Well, we're going to be data dependent, which sounds really cool, right? He kind of softened his stance. He kind of got limp on that whole economy's great thing. And then this week, he's come out and he's sounding rather weak. Oh, we're going to really not take a hard look at raising the rates. We may stop or we may even lower them. Now, that means cheaper, freer, easier money for investing, right? That's what Donald Trump has been saying. Don't raise the rates. But if the economy is recovering and so strong, why do we need below normal rates, right? We should have normalized rates if we've got a normalized economy, but we don't. It's been pumped up with quantitative easing. And you take that money away and you raise the rates where they're supposed to be, and the engine is choking, right? The economic engine has been choking. It's been sputtering for months and months, and actually years, with store closings, with lower tax revenue, right? It's been closing, and they've been using free money. They're the printing press. It's called counterfeiting, right? Because money is supposed to be, or currency is supposed to be backed by something of value. Paper is not backed by anything except a promise to print more paper. So anyways, Powell's gone from strong to neutral to weak. The economy's weak, and now so what are they saying? They're letting us know that we're going to have a crash from economic weakness rather than economic strength. What's the solution? They're going to dump the interest rates at some point here. As soon as the big old crash comes, they're going to dump them, pump a bunch of cash out there into the market. We may get direct deposit into our bank accounts, a big pile of cash or a check in the mail. We may get quantitative easing, helicopter money, or we may get universal basic income, which is a freebie handout. But in every way you want to look at it, it is money taken out that has to be paid back. So it's debt. It's monetized debt, which creates inflation. Back in the 70s, and I was just a young lad, but I remember talks and discussions from my family members about inflation. I didn't know what it meant. I just remember the word inflation. Later I learned in economics that there were serious bouts of inflation in the 70s when we came off of the gold standard or closed the gold window under President Nixon back in 71. A couple years later, if even that, inflation was up to 10%, 12%, 15%. It was out of control. Can you imagine? Can you imagine losing 1% of your wealth a month? Someone coming into your bank account at the end of the year and taking 12% of your money and just saying you don't need that anymore. That's what inflation is. It is a slow theft, quiet theft of your wealth, because inflation reflects purchasing power. So it could get real bad. So Trump this week, back to Trump. He came out and actually threatened, promised, teased, taunted, screwed with the Democrats and said, why don't we do this government shutdown for a number of years? What? Now my question is, what good would it do if the necessary government still got paid and just the non-essentials were let go altogether? How much money would we save? Would that make up that extra $2 trillion in deficit spending on top of all the money they collect from us? All the money they get in sales tax, all the money the governments get in property tax, in tariffs, in income tax, in corporate tax, in capital gains tax. All that money they take, they go in debt, an additional now $2 trillion. That's the level we've raised to. You think getting rid of some non-essential employees and some parks is going to make a fucking difference? No. But the shutdown is meant, it's being used as a political toy to taunt, to screw with the Democrats. And we need to understand that's what it is, that's what it's going to do, and there's going to be consequences. Am I going to enjoy the Democrats being taunted? Yes. There's nothing I can do about it anyway, and they're going to be pissed off no matter what. You can't please them. They're rabid weasels. Nothing makes them happy. Nothing. They cannot be satisfied. You give them, and they ask for more. You tell them no, and they demand and cry and whine and say you're an evil person. You cannot make them happy. So this is interesting. Trump is threatening multiple year shutdowns of the government. Now, if it's an incremental step in, well, we've tried that and we still have a deficit, so now we need to cut essential employees. In fact, now we're going to relabel bureaucracy as non-essential and start getting rid of some ABC agencies. That would be nice. I'm not holding my breath. I'm not putting any money on that square, but it's a possibility. Time will tell. And every week we're finding out. We're getting closer. Taunting the Democrats with eternal government shutdown? I wish it was real, but it's not. But yeah, that's definitely an SHTF indicator, I would say. Now, this week, on the new year, I decided I would go look at what the media is saying. Look at how they're saying it. Listen to it. Mainstream media, NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC. Mainstream media. And even Fox. On the internet, you've got all of your Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Journal, I think it's Journal and Constitution. You go anywhere, Yahoo News, you're going to see angry articles about Trump, calling him vicious names. It's not like George Bush that they just didn't like and they called him stupid. They call Trump some awful names. They're calling him a liar, and it is incredible the amount of disrespect the office of the President of the United States of America is receiving from the press in this country. And what has he really done wrong? Not much. He hasn't done much wrong. And they hate him viciously. So there's a reason. Something's going on behind the scenes. I would like it exposed so we can all know. I would sleep better at night knowing the extent of the shit that this country is getting itself involved in, rather than being kept in the dark, right, and being sprinkled with a little water and a little poop like a mushroom, right, just enough to keep me alive. I'm tired of that shit. I would like it to come out. Let America deal with the fact that we've been screwed over. And while we're talking about Trump and screwed over, now he's waffling a bit on Syria. Well, maybe we won't leave. Not so fast. Whatever. Waffling. Is it because of politics? Is it because of something that's going on in the Middle East? Who knows? It is not good when a political leader, a commander-in-chief, waffles back and forth. Now, compared to Obama, he is a stalwart, a bulwark against stupidity, right? Obama waffled daily, and no one called him on his shit. But Trump is waffling a little, and I'm not afraid to call him on his shit. You know, we've had far worse people like Clinton, Bill, who would bomb aspen factories and milk factories in order to hide the fact he was being impeached for getting Lewinsky's from Lewinsky. Now, while we're on impeachment, very quickly, yes, the president can be impeached by the House of Representatives, but impeachment does not remove the president from the office. The president must be impeached by the House. Then that is basically like an indictment that's handed to the Senate, and the Senate tries the impeachment, and then, if found guilty, they can sentence the president and have him removed from office. Right? That's impeachment doesn't remove the president from the office. The conviction in the Senate does. Okay, so let's moving on to other presidential news. Elizabeth Warren, who has been unaffectionately nicknamed Pocahontas, for her claims that she has Native American ancestry. And I really don't care one way or the other. I just think it's funny to make fun of her because she is a ditz and a dipshit and a dangerous Democrat communist. She has announced that she wants to run for president. Bernie Sanders is throwing his hat in. I'd be surprised if Joe Lieberman doesn't try it again. We also have ex-Vice President the creepy child groper. I don't even want to remember his name. Biden, Joe Biden. He's creepy, man. If you've seen those videos where he puts his hands all over little girls, we're talking prepubescent girls. He's just fucking creepy. Anyways, all these people want to be president. 2 years away and they're already starting to knife and fight each other. That is not going to go well for this country. To have division upon division upon division. It's good for the Democrat Party to be destroyed, but the rest of our nation doesn't need to be. Now, to kind of end everything, the end of the week, there was a jobs report came out talking about jobs at the end of 2018. They were enthusiastically released. The job market is good. Employment is solid, right? So the market, which this week it took some big dives. And then back up and then down and up and down. Anyways, between last Friday and this Friday, we've only gone up 200 points. We're still way down in a correction. We're still down at the bear market zone. And if anyone has any illusions about it being a bear market, take away all that free quantitative easing that was given to banks and corporations, which they turned around and bought back their own stocks to elevate prices. Tell me, right, that there isn't an excess of fake, phony cash in there, and this market should be down a lot further. It's being supported by your tax dollars, by your children and your grandchildren's futures. And even if you don't have children or grandchildren, by time you do, they'll have a tax bill to pay. Anyways, moving along. This report came out, and the stock market shot up on Friday. Shot up. A little higher than it fell yesterday, or rather Thursday. What does this tell us? See, I don't really give a shit if the market goes up 1,000 points or if it falls 1,000 points. Either way, it's an indicator of imbalance, fear, uncertainty, misdirection, misunderstanding, misreading the economy. When it does this, remember, last February 2018, we had a correction. And I said you got 6 to 18 months. If it weren't for all the QE, we would have crashed all the way by now. But there's a lot of QE or plunge protection team money out there, and it's fine. It can be there. Have at it. That money's in there. I know we would have had a crash by now if it wasn't being artificially supported. But regardless, it's going to rocket up and rocket down. It could go all the way up to 30,000 for all I care. It doesn't take away the fact that our economy is destroyed. The people are in debt over their eyeballs and they can't pay their bills. Right? It is crashed. The ship has hit the iceberg. Titanic 2 2019. It's already hit the iceberg. And unlike a train wreck, which ends in a few seconds, you tear a big old hole in a ship, it takes a few hours for it to sink. It slowly goes down. This economy has been slowly coming down. which is crashing the monetary system. We have problems in the bonds. We have problems everywhere. If it has anything to do with the dollar, including the dollar, it is extremely weak. It is incredibly volatile, and I'm not talking about the VIX, the Volatility Measuring Index, which is another casino game you can play on Wall Street to make money. You can bet that volatility goes up or down. Who does it? Who rates it? Who gives a shit? Real volatility, the way you and I think about it, is if the market is shooting up and then shooting down, straight up and straight down, making no sense, no rhyme or reason, that is volatility. That is fear in the market. That is money looking for a place to run and looking for a place to go. It went into bonds big time this week, right? 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 30-year bonds. It went into bonds. People are trying to find a safe haven. It is fascinating, right? They're putting money into bonds. It is tanking the bond interest rate, which is below now the rate that is being charged by the federal government, right? In interest by the Fed, by the Federal Reserve. In other words, you're guaranteeing yourself a loss by buying bonds. Isn't that incredible? If you're only going to get paid 2.5%, why would you buy a bond if the interest rate is over 3%? Why would you do that? Anyways, what a fucking mess. We're in the midst of it. Any day we could have a false flag. Any day we could have the big kaboom in the market. They're going to do all they can to stop it. It's cold outside. It's muddy, it's rainy, it's snowy, it's freaking cold. So the social activities are calm for the time being. But that doesn't mean they're going to stop, because look at what is happening in France still with their yellow vest protests. It's winter there as well, and they're that pissed off. At some point, and maybe if we get the stock market crash, maybe if the EBT cards don't get renewed, refilled, whatever, we'll see people on the streets here, regardless of temperature or weather. Right? So, please, get ready, get prepared. Go to thepreparedmind.club if you need to find or look for anything in the world of prepping that has been tested and used by me and others for the purpose of prepping, so that when there is a interruption in our supply chain, right, the distribution network of goodies we use every day, food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, when that gets interrupted, you can only rely on yourself. That's what being a prepper is about. Right? Having a plan and understanding that world around us. Because when the traffic stops, the electricity goes out, that 10 square miles around you and the people in it, that's going to be your world. So chance favors that prepared mind is yours. And we'll talk to you guys again Monday for everyone on Patreon. And then you guys on YouTube, man, you're just as important. Get it done. Get prepped. No screwing around. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Semper Fi, Godspeed to all.